Welcome to another episode of Flip the Script, along with Deba Douglas, Jared Sandler. Happy to be with you. I think this is technically episode 3.
Episode 3. Look at that. We got it going on.
You know, if you've closed out 3 deals, paid off 3 deals with long run investments, you are qualified for the loyalty program. So we're
almost there.
We're almost loyalty.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
I wonder what we get.
I don't know. What should we get? Should we go somewhere?
Maybe our great producer, Michael Prager, has to be nicer to us and not make fun of us for messing up.
Yes, after 3. I'm there for that. I'm with it.
Yeah, I like that too. All right, so coming up, we are going to talk about, I guess, assessing risk, right? Is that and understanding it from your perspective, from my perspective, and from a borrower's perspective?
Yes.
Because there's always risk, right?
Yeah.
Surefire deal, but what's too much, and maybe that's a different answer for you versus me versus someone else, but just trying to understand what's all at stake.
Right. What's a good deal and what's a deal you should just walk away from?
Okay, I like that. So we'll do that in a few minutes, but episode 1, and would love for you to tune in to previous episodes if, hey, this is your first time tuning in. And if it is, Deba wears a ton of hats in the real estate world. Investor, realtor, instructor, confidant, friend, social media star. I don't know, what am I missing?
A mom.
Mom.
I'm a mom. I have 3 crazy kids that keep me busy. And I am a wife to an amazing man that lets me do this crazy world.
Yes. Apparently his best golf days, though, were maybe in the past from what I heard.
Yes, they're not right now. We're still working through that.
He's had some back issues where, I mean, he's playing through.
You're so graceful.
Yeah, he's not on the back 9 of his golf career.
No.
Front 9, it's only going to get better.
It's right. And I did sign him up for some training because we cannot continue to embarrass him. Once an athlete, always an athlete. So it's like in us, we got to do better.
I can sense his frustration. You wrote an apology note for his performance at the Corn Ferry Pro-Am that was here in DFW, but it was awesome. I wish I was able to be that one. But it was great having him, and Longhorn Investments loves the entire Douglas family. So we talked about in episode 1 kind of how you got into this, and maybe people who've followed some of our content in the past, you're very quick to share your story from education to real estate, and when you're kind of doing a little bit of both, and then said goodbye to education, and you kind of dove into this full time, right?
Right.
So I wanted to take a few minutes, if you don't mind, if you want to do it.
Absolutely.
Never actually. I don't think on any kind of public platform how I got into this. So this is not my full-time job. I don't know if I've ever said their words. I don't know if I've ever used it yet. I'm a broadcaster. I broadcast sports, specifically, primarily for the Texas Rangers. And I've been doing that with the Rangers since 2015. But college, that was always the focus.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I mean, I don't even know if I knew what real estate investing meant. You spend money and maybe you get a return. I don't know. But my wife and I got married, and shortly after we got married, we bought a house. And shortly after we moved into the house, or I think like 6 weeks, 8 weeks of work that needed to be done. And then about 3 weeks after that, after we moved in, our house flooded. And it was not a flood in the way that people think of a flood. Water built up because the drain that was clogged was not detected in the inspection because it was underground, and I get stipulated inspector's not liable. And insurance didn't cover it, and also we didn't have flood insurance. We're not in a floodplain, but flood insurance wouldn't have covered it either. We learned because we looked into getting it, but we lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And because of the baseball schedule, first of all, it's not like I just show up for the game and that's it, but I don't have your traditional 9 to 5. Allows me a lot of free time, especially in the mornings. And then we have an off season. And even though I did some broadcasting things and had a charity that I started that I do the off season, I had time, and I kind of felt like I needed to make a family decision to help us get out of, a tough spot after basically losing everything in this house and having to kind of build up. And So I was going to just drive Uber because I needed something that was flexible.
Right.
I needed something that didn't care that I was a broadcaster first.
Right.
And it just felt weird, like going to people and, hey, do you have any work for me? But I need to make more than whatever I can make in Uber. And I need you to be totally flexible with my schedule because just know that you're not coming first.
Right.
And so my brother knew this guy named Mike Hoffman. He invested in his fund as real estate investment fund. And I met Mike because Mike had come to one of my charity events, but I really didn't know Mike. And so my brother was like, hey, why don't you go, Jason,
Yeah.
Jason. He was like, hey, why don't you go meet with, or let me reach out to this Mike guy. I forget how it all went down, but basically Mike's like, hey, why don't you come to the office? So let's talk. And I thought that Mike was going to sit me down and ask me, hey, all right, so what's your schedule? What's this? What skills do you have? And the answer was really nothing. All right, let me introduce you to this person, that person, maybe someone will come.
Yeah.
I didn't know Mike that well.
Right.
But he sat me down, he asked me a few questions, and he basically started telling me about the job he wanted me to do here.
Wow.
It was incredibly generous of him. I was kind of like not sure what I'm getting myself into because I didn't know, I didn't have a business background.
Right.
Again, like basic terms, like we're just over my understanding how interest works and what principal means. And, I really sadly didn't know a lot of this stuff, but I started. And my initial task was to try and connect us with the realtors through metric tests.
Okay.
And go through like a lead sheet of people who had done deals with us like 10 years prior. So I don't know. But then eventually I started learning and I got into being a loan consultant and was helping out with other things, content related, various odd jobs around the office. And I thought I was just going to do it until I kind of got back up on my feet, and then I do it until the following spring training. Then spring training rolled around, and I was like, what? I'm gonna keep doing it a little bit longer. Let me just see. I was starting to get it. I was starting to get some momentum. I don't think we had met yet, but I think we were close.
Right.
So then, what happens in spring of 2020? The world shuts down.
The world shuts down.
No thing goes on.
No, at all.
But baseball did. And so I'm sitting there and I don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to play? Am I going to get furloughed? What's it all looking like? So I did leave. I kept going. And by the time baseball started back up in late July, not for me to say I was rolling or not, but I felt like, hey, I can't just walk away from this. This is great, like supplemental income.
Yeah.
And then we also, over from May 2020, but I guess, in May 2020, Emily and I, my wife, Emily, we lost a child. We learned we had to go down the IVF route, and that's not cheap.
No, at all.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to keep doing this. And because of the pandemic and the restrictions, I had more freedom and flexibility.
Yeah.
There wasn't as much going on in the day-to-day with baseball in what we were allowed to do.
Right.
And so then next spring rolled around, and I'm like, all right, well, do I need to leave? It's spring training. I was like, no, you know what? I don't know that I need to advertise this. I had this fake, it wasn't fake. It was my Facebook profile, but I had the name Jay Sand.
Right.
You met me as Jay Sand.
Yes.
I have since changed it to Jared Sandler. And it wasn't because I thought, oh, I'm a broadcaster, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't know my bosses, like what they would say.
Right.
So anyway, here we are. It's 2025. I'm still doing this. I love it. I probably need to apply for more than 24 hours in a day. And I do have a great team. I mentioned our producer of this, Michael Pleatter and Eric Feldman. And I probably ask for more help than the average person. I know I'm probably not because I'm trying to balance this job.
Right.
We got past the house thing, but we're still doing the fertility thing. And I told you this before, and I'm not going to get emotional when I say this, but the relationship that we started and all the business we've done together, which has helped put, money in my pocket, has allowed, that, and then just all the business in general has allowed me and Emily to navigate through the fertility world, which is not cheap. And we're still, in pursuit of our first child,
Right.
Surrogacy and IVF. But my work here has allowed us to, and I'm so grateful for it, to pursue these options. And it's not that we don't have to worry about what it costs, but and there are things we've not done because maybe it's cost prohibitive, but we're at least able to have a conversation.
Right.
So thank you. And for those of you listening who have done deals with us or with me, I hope you now, maybe hearing that, understand what my why is. And when you do business with Longhorn, when you do business with me, what it's going toward.
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt like today was a good day to share.
Right.
I don't mean this in a crummy way. My role with the Rangers has grown more.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little tougher for me to hide like I used to. And I've noticed the last few months more people, hey, are you the broadcaster? Yeah, said I was tired of either like playing dumb or immediately writing a disclaimer like, hey, please, like, I'm trying to keep I'm not trying to use the Rangers to leverage anything at all, but I am the same person. And I can also assure you, and hopefully you can testify to this, while the Rangers gig is my primary responsibility, I promise you that you are never going to feel like you're short.
You will not.
In terms of my focus and commitment to your deal, I've got a great assistant named Jake, who is on top of everything. So if I am on air, he is able to jump on stuff seamlessly. And it's probably nicer, better looking, more better than I am. So it's probably better that you deal with Jake than me to begin with. But I appreciate you giving me a space to share that. I wanted to share it. And I kind of feel like I have a weight.
That is awesome. I was just about to say, like, there's a relief of just like, now you're free, the freedom, and just, hey, this is what it is. And I will test to this. I am not a big baseball fan, or I wasn't. Now I am a lot more because now my kids are in baseball. And I remember like sending you text messages, reaching out to you. I never knew any of that was going on until you later on, after we've done several deals, you're like, hey, there are moments when I'm like MIA, and I'm like, I never felt that, because I would send text messages to you like 6 o'clock in the morning and you would respond within 5 or 6 minutes. But I will say, it's been such a pleasure working with you. I don't think I would be where I'm at if it wasn't for you and you being able to be so transparent, answer all of my silly questions that I probably should know, but I didn't know, and how you work with my mentees. It's like you are a partner in whatever we're doing with real estate. You are right there with us, holding our hands. And I just think like you and Emily are like my close friends. Like, we're in this together, and I'm just happy for you, just being able to just be free and just, let's go do it. Let's go kill it.
I appreciate it. No, I love it. And why are Deb and I doing this? For me, I mean, the relationship that we've built over the last 4 years is incredibly meaningful. And, when I did share kind of the story, I think it probably made more sense to you. It transcends just a business.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you remember where we were when I first told you?
We were at a restaurant. No, but it was it wasn't too far from here where we are. Yeah. Yeah.
The Woodlands.
Yes, the
We were
Woodlands.
facing out, and I was so nervous that I told Eric, our vice president of sales and marketing, unless his title's changed, I told him, I was like, I think I'm going to tell Deba. And he was like blown away, because I went to some pretty great lengths to keep it.
Right. And you did a really good job with it too. You did.
Yeah. But I remember when I told you, I was like so nervous. Is she going to be upset? Is she going to question me? But thankfully, I did make sure. I've been lucky. I've never felt like this job has compromised broadcasting. I always put broadcasting first, and having an assistant has helped tremendously. But I've also, I don't feel like I've short
No,
the borrowers.
absolutely. No.
But anyway, all right, let's get. I wanted to say that. I'm glad I did. But now let's get into risk quickly. So, what are some of the things that you think are important for a real estate investor to understand when it comes to risk management?
Yeah. So every deal, you are going to find a way to talk yourself into it or talk yourself out of it. So one thing you have to make sure you focus on is really knowing that subdivision, really knowing that zip code, knowing how many days on the market is a house sitting on the market, and finding out, like, go walk that neighborhood, go walk where that house is. Because there are a couple of things that I know Longhorn is adverse to, which I agree with a lot of them. Like, one of them could be not buying a house that's right across the street from a crap a crap institution or something of that nature that has a bunch of debris. Not buying a house that's on a busy street, because let's just be honest, those different situations, the next buyer that's going to buy it or someone that's going to rent it out, they're not going to want to stay there, and they're not going to want to put money into that type of investment. So just really knowing those different things, because just because it's a cheap house doesn't mean that you need to buy it. Cheap houses usually give you most of the headache. So just things like that. What are some other things that Longhorn is adverse?
You mentioned, like if you're on a street corner and there's a church, we're gonna maybe look at that a little differently than if there's a liquor store and a strip club.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, these are two very different things. We get asked a lot about fire damaged homes, and typically my answer is, well, how much house coverage, damaged by the fire. What is, let's see some pictures. If it's a small portion of the house, then maybe it's something we consider. But at the end of the day, what we want is for our borrowers to get out of our loan. Get out of our loan. That means they've either sold the property or they've refinanced if it's a rental.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we are our borrowers are investing in properties that lead to a higher likelihood of success, and there's a larger pool of people who are going to be interested.
Absolutely.
Why don't we do $20 million homes? Because how many people are out there looking for a $20 million home? But there are also people with a fire damaged home. There's so much you just don't know. There's so much that it's tough to uncover until you really get in there. But also there are a lot of people who they hear that and they're out. Right. So your pool of buyer
has just shrunk.
And so I would say if it's a very small portion of the home, bring it to me. Let's talk. But I would also just tell you, or I would say if it was, my future son or daughter, I would say find another one. There's no reason why it has to be that one. Another thing we get asked about: lakefront properties, lake houses. Right? Lake houses are awesome. They're fun. You go there, whether you've retired there, it's a weekend house. It's great, but it might not be for us. Because there's, depending how close to the water it is, obviously there's a reason why some of these properties are expensive and desirable. It's not because they're going to have flood damages every 5 days, but there are risks that come with houses that are right on the water. And these just aren't risks that we feel like we want to be involved in.
Absolutely.
So that's the last thing I'll say is, when we say no to a deal, we're not telling you this is a bad investment per se, because I think that's, people come back to me like, oh, but it's great because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying, Deba, I don't think you can have success with it. I'm saying it's a combination. It's not for us, because of the risks that we see. And maybe we are saying it's not maybe like now at times it's like, I don't know that this is a good opportunity. It's not always that. Like with people that they specialize in these small town rural deals. We don't want to get involved in that.
Right.
How many people, if it's a smaller bit? So a lot of it is, how can we find deals that we're putting the ball on the tee and putting the buyer in a great position to succeed?
It's more conservative. I think I align with Longhorn because I go into deals being very conservative. How am I going to get as many buyers as possible to want to buy this house so that if someone backs out, I have another one just ready to go? And so I'm very cautious of where am I buying the property? Where is the house located within the subdivision? That makes a big deal. And I always think of an abundant mindset. If this doesn't work, that's okay. Give me a couple more weeks. I'm going to find another deal. Where I think some borrowers are just like, oh my gosh, I've been looking forever. I found this deal and I'm going to make this work. When you really need to be more open and find out a good deal that you're going to have multiple buyers that are interested in it. And I think that's why we do align so well with Longhorn, because we are very conservative. Like the ARV may be 310, but I'm going to focus on 300,000. Just in case something goes bad or something's behind the walls, I've still already set myself up to be conservative going into the deal.
And there's not, sometimes I might feel, and I think last episode we talked about how sometimes it feels like the wells run dry. Deals out there.
But
then they start
filling.
There is always going to be another.
Always.
Right. And I think the ones that make me upset or they make me sad you've got these eager investors.
Yes.
They've done all the work. They've gone through your class. Now, they wouldn't go down this route because you wouldn't let them.
Right. Right.
Someone who's gone through education and they're ready to be at it. They feel like I've been patient. I didn't just jump right in. I've put in time. And then you get this deal and they're like, I want to jump on it because I think it's good.
Yes.
But I don't know. But yeah, it's going to work out.
Yes.
And then they jump on it and it ends up being.
Yeah, right. And I have an example of that. We had one of our borrowers or one of my mentees, he found a house that was on the same street that he grew up on. So he was already like, this is going to be so cool, very sentimental to him. And he went under contract, sight unseen. So he decided, I'm just going to buy it because I know this area. He goes and gives his $5,000 non-refundable earnest money. Then he finally walks the house. And then he walks the house and realizes that all the walls are made out of cement. So as his electrician comes in to kind of say, okay, what are we going to do? Put the GFCIs, put the outlets. They can't do it because now they've created baseboards. And when you look at the baseboards, that's where all the outlets are throughout the entire house. And so I talked to him and I said, honestly, I don't think this is a good idea because you are not going to be able to paint the house because it's all made of cement. We're going to have to put new sheetrock up. The ceiling was already cowering low. So now I'm like, it's cement up here too. I think you need to back out. And he was like, I really want this house because it's on the same street that I grew up in. And I was like, yeah, we're saying all these things, but nothing is focusing on the numbers and nothing is focusing on the true deal. It's more emotional and sentimental to you. And I would rather you get out and lose $5,000 than get into this deal. And now you can't find a buyer, nor can you find someone that's going to rent it out or give you a DSCR loan that's solid. And so after a couple of just deliberation, going back and forth, he decided to walk away. But that was probably the best decision for him because sometimes we get so caught up in the emotion and we're not really looking at the numbers.
I've said this before. It's kind of a corny little thing I came up with, but sometimes we say no so that we can say
Yes, absolutely.
the wrong deal. There is no no.
Right.
So if you say no to the wrong deal, then you live to see another day.
Absolutely.
And then, you know what? Maybe 5 deals in, you have the ability to take a little more risk.
Yeah.
You've made some money, but not in the beginning.
Not in the beginning because that may be the last.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say, when I think of the numbers, I use the extreme example of 20 million. We do deals with properties that, value north of $1 million, but just understand that the higher you go, the smaller your.
Yes. Right.
And then the other thing is large rehabs. Right. Typically, the deals that you do and advise are rehabs 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe.
Yeah.
Rehabs, though, that are north of $100,000. Just understand. And we are now at a point where we want to see some level of experience of that because the larger the rehab, when something goes over, it's big money, right? When you crack on a $20,000 rehab, you might be adding 3 to 5 to 7,000.
Right.
When you're going over on 100,000, it's maybe 20 to 30.
Easy. Right? Easy.
There's a lot that goes into a rehab of that size, from managing it. There probably are components to it that have made it north of 100,000 that can get you in trouble if you're not totally sure what you're doing.
Right.
So just understand, larger rehabs, they're not we had plenty of success with those.
Right.
But you need to be prepared. It is a different world than like a 20,000.
Absolutely. And you really have to be more hands-on and you really have to solidify your team. This is not just, hey, somebody you picked up at Home Depot and said, hey, they can do this all. If you're doing a bigger rehab, you have to really understand the entire process because any little small thing can really just set you back.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk about that on a future episode. I know our for episode 4, we're actually going to have a guest join us. We're excited about that, but maybe we discuss kind of the nitty gritty of putting together a scope of work and some of the things to avoid, some of the tricks of the trade.
Yes, absolutely.
Put yourself in a position to see there. Okay, well, that's going to do it for episode 3 of Flip the Script. Thanks again for giving me
Absolutely.
to get my backstory.
Yeah,
I'm happy for anyone listening out at this point. If you have Rangers questions, I'm happy to answer along with real estate questions. But we'd love to work with you, and if that means talking ball along the way, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, they'll recognize your voice now. Like I always recognize your voice now.
Yeah, we got here, right? Yeah. All right. Well, she's Deba. I'm Jared. Let me thank my breaker. And everyone for tuning in. We'll be back with episode 4 of Flip the Script coming up later on. But this has been episode 3 of the Flip the Script podcast with Deba Douglas and Jared Sandlin.
Bye.